Well, New York Giant fans. We are at the same spot we've been in, maybe worse than years prior, but this is a sad place we're in right now. Sad place. The New York Giants lost 28-6 on Sunday, and there is a shit ton to go over from this game. And the fact that we're having conversations about replacing one guy or benching a guy or doing this, that, and the third this early in the season shows that we've been running through the same song and dance the last few years, and it's just a cycle. It is literally just a cycle, and it's an unhealthy cycle that rots from the top up of this organization, and it's not going to be stopped, and it's not going to, get any better until God knows what else. I think you have to get to a point where the Giants fans actually stop buying season tickets, and you start kind of protesting this. But I think Mara hears the fans more than an owner like Chris Johnson, Woody Johnson, or Hal Steinbrenner would. Um, but this is awful, man. This is awful. You can't expect a fan to watch 17 games loaded of this shit. But if you guys haven't already, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when the live stream pops or video drops. I put up a poll in the chat that is if the Giants season is over or not. And also, podcast platforms. It just seems like everybody on the New York Football Giants did something wrong on Sunday. Like, even if they played well, they said something stupid, which you guys know that I'm going to get into that. What's up to Armand in the chat? What's up to everybody, again, entering the chat? Hopefully we get a slew of people, but this is going to be another episode of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast about the Giants, being embarrassed. So some main key cog topics I'm going to talk about today are Daniel Jones, Brian Dable, Joe Shane Bowen, John Mara, the organization as a whole. And I'm going to obviously go into the game type first. And then I want to talk big picture because that's where we have to be, right? 3 years into this regime, and you can't just talk about the game anymore, especially if you got your ass kicked like that. It has to be just more than one position. And you guys know that I am not a person who thinks Daniel Jones should have even been in the position that he is right now without competition, because you guys know that, hey, I wanted a quarterback, and we'll talk about that. But at the end of the day, it's not looking good for anybody. And to sit there and embarrass your entire organization and the legends and their families in front and have them watch this garbage celebrating the 100th year of this franchise. Let me tell you something. If John Mara does not feel this now, I don't think he ever will. Because John Mara is very emotional. He's very sentimental. He's very much like a fan. It's been running through his family since the Giants even became an organization 100 years ago. I think Tim Mara was the guy who bought the team. Then it went to Wellington. Then it went to John. And we know John, the last few years, likes to do these, honor this guy, honor Strahan, Super Bowl team from 2011. And it just seems like the Giants have always laid a fucking egg when that shit has happened. And to be honest with you, I don't remember the Giants doing as many of these ceremonies in like the 2018, 2019. Maybe it's like a money tactic or just an emotional tactic. But I mean, for whatever reason, it hasn't spelled well in the organization. And the fact that Carl Banks mentioned on the Belief podcast that, well, Lawrence Taylor said to me when we were about to go out there, we can put 22 of us out there and we play better. That's sad. That is completely sad. And Lawrence Taylor, he's got a personality. He's, we know who Lawrence Taylor is. But the fact that he said that about his own team says a lot. Says a lot. And sometimes you try to play the company line and like try to maintain a good profile with the organization. I'm sorry, there's no defending that. You cannot sit there and try to paint some fucking picture about what happened on Sunday. And I think it's worse than what happened against Dallas last year, because Dallas was like so better talented, not to defend the loss in any way, but they were miles ahead of the New York Football Giants in talent. This team is not even that good. This team is not that good. Sam Darnold, I mean, Armin knows. He knows about the Sam Darnold era. He was with the Panthers. He was with the Jets. This guy isn't that good of a quarterback, but the Giants made him look like a premier passer in this league. They made him look like Brock Purdy. And just so many things went wrong. So many things. But hope you guys are tuning in. Again, share out to all the good stuff. So let's go into the quarterback. And you guys know my position on the quarterback. If you've been watching me for a while, you guys know. I don't like Daniel Jones as a quarterback. I think he's a good person, but that shouldn't even be mattered. That shouldn't even be a part of the conversation. I have never, in my entire life as a football fan, as someone who's even watched sports, seen a regression as big as Daniel Jones has taken. And you could attribute that to any way possible. You could attribute that to the neck injury, the ACL, his confidence, whatever. He is cooked as a quarterback. You cannot sit here and tell me that the Giants are going to be this premier team or anything like that with that type of quarterback play. And the sad thing is, folks, right? I think this weekend the Giants are going to win, personally me, but that doesn't buy me anything. Remember last year when the Giants got beaten the shit out of by the Cowboys, but they beat a mercilessly under-talented Arizona team when they were down 20 at halftime. And we were supposed to buy in, hey, maybe we're back. Maybe the season's back. No, I'm not doing that. Go into Cleveland, beat a shitty Deshaun Watson, do something on Thursday night, and then you buy me back in. But it starts with the quarterback. It starts with the quarterback. We were sold this bill of goods. It really all starts from last year, the timeline. I'm going to start there, folks. I'm going to start there. I wanted a quarterback after the Devon Witherspoon interception. I said, this guy's done. This guy's done. I don't know what it is. He's done. Done. Over. So he gets injured, all this other stuff. I wanted to tank. I'm a fan. I could do what the hell I want. And you go into the offseason, right? There's obviously all the talk we did, Giants drafting a quarterback, and they're not drafting a quarterback. Are they in the position to draft a quarterback? Who do they want? Who do they like? And we saw Hard Knocks that Joe Shane wanted Drake May, and John Mara was a little worried about going up for a quarterback. Brian Dable wanted Jaden Daniels, none of which was going to happen because guess what? Guess what? Well, the Washington Commanders and the Patriots were a little ahead of us in the draft order, and they took them. So 3 quarterbacks and 3 picks. Mind you, all of those teams, well, Jaden Daniels didn't win this weekend, and Drake May didn't play. So the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, they won this weekend against the Tennessee Titans. But they didn't want Penix. They didn't want Penix. They didn't want Bo Nix. I wasn't a fan of Bo Nix. They didn't want JJ McCarthy, and they painted this whole PR picture of, hey, we're going to take JJ McCarthy out to dinner. Hey, we're going to take JJ McCarthy and, have him at this workout on Easter and paint this picture like JJ McCarthy is going to be the next franchise quarterback of the New York Giants. Instead, nobody believed you, and you decided to take Malik Neighbors, which we'll see if it's a waste of a career. We'll see if it's a waste. What's up to Daniel Berry Sports? What's up to Jose? Hope all is well, Jose. Congrats on your Seahawks victory. Evan says Daniel Jones not coming back from this. He is not. Armand says, when do you believe Jones gets benched? If he shits the bed on Thursday Night Football, his career as a Giant is done. I am telling you that on the spot right now. You could take that to the bank. But the way Daniel Jones looked in this game, and we'll talk about play calling as certain things, but it's not even as big as the way Daniel Jones played on Sunday. This man had threw 2 interceptions. I started to lessen the blame on him for that screen because that was such an obvious play call, right? But I do think maybe you could audible out of it. Again, I've never played quarterback, but at the same time, I can ask questions, can I? And then that throw behind Slayton into what looked like triple coverage to Harrison Smith. 2 bad decisions. Okay, I'll exclude the screen. Bad decision right there. Not to mention how many mistakes, how many missed routes, how many underthrows that Daniel Jones faced. That he did. That he did. How many underthrows, comeback route to Theo Johnson or comeback route to Wandale Robinson. And Wandale Robinson literally has to dive for it and put his hands under the football. That's how bad Daniel Jones was throwing the ball. It's not enough power. It's not enough drive. Something is mechanically wrong with him, and the Giants cannot consistently continue with this guy at quarterback. And I know people will say, well, Drew Lock, he's not much better. That's the Giants' fault. That is the Giants' fault. And we're going to talk about it. But realistically, folks, that's the New York Giants' fault. That's the New York Giants' fault. So, and it's not even worth like going into every single thing, picking apart the plays and stuff. First of all, I don't break down film. Second of all, it's just facts. It is such a rundown, mitigated point that Daniel Jones is cooked as a quarterback. We saw in training camp, and everyone wanted to get hyped. They want to get happy. They wanted to throw a party. Yeah, Daniel Jones, he's throwing passes to Malik Neighbors. Oh, this offense looked good. I said, look, okay, I want to see this in the regular season when we actually face real teams. Daniel Jones goes out against the Texans. He looks like shit. He looks like utter garbage. And then when the second teamers come in, they come in and Daniel Jones all of a sudden manages a drive down the field, right? So then we get to week one and this shit happens. Again, this is why I don't buy into a lot of these different things, folks, because I'm not easily gaslit like other people. I'm really not. I'm an honest human being. I will always portray my feelings as honest, and I will never gaslight any of you. I will always give you my real opinion. I'm not looking for a narrative. So here's where pretty much a lot of shit comes for full circle with the New York Giants. And this is where I'm going to rip them as an organization. So you can kind of say, okay, we're going to go away from the game for a sec and talk about the big picture. By the way, the offensive line was pretty average, which is a step up from way it's been for the last few years. Now, there were a couple of bad plays by Runyon and a couple of bad plays by Van Roten most notably. And, that shit could get cleaned up. Carmen Brissell is a go line coach. John Michael Schmitz made some adjustments. But a quarterback can operate behind this O-line. If you put Sam Darnold behind this O-line, which, I would say the Giants O-line performance was slightly less better than the Vikings, but you could pretty much say it's on the same weight class. It's on the same level. But this is where I go and really talk about them as an organization. I've been telling people this for the longest time. And if you guys want to agree with me, you guys want to disagree with me, let me know and we could talk about it. The Giants as an organization are very scared of controversy. They are very scared of controversy. They are very, very sharp on the headlines. They want to make themselves look like this beautiful woman when they're actually a very ugly person. Now, what do I mean by that? The Giants, with this whole quarterback situation, have, again, going to repeat the point, have immersed themselves in controversy by trying to avoid the obvious and trying to not create controversy. They've been so bad for so many years that you're going to be in controversy anyway. But let's start from the beginning. Not even with the 2021, 2020, 2019 season. Let's start in 22. Okay, you bring Tyrod Taylor in. The Giants don't draft a backup quarterback. They don't draft somebody you could, mold as a developmental guy. They bring in Davis Webb, and that's pretty much their three quarterbacks for the entire season. So what happens is you go to the next week and next few weeks, and the playoff thing happens, whatever. The Giants signed Daniel Jones to this massive contract, and he needed to play better. There's no question about it. You don't throw 15 touchdowns, get a contract, and all of a sudden, it's okay. No, it's not okay. They wanted him to do better because sometimes that's what contracts are given for, because of what they believe the ceiling can be. The Giants stuck with Tyrod Taylor. They didn't draft a quarterback in the back end of the draft at all, just to have a developmental guy. That was never a thought in their mind, except they had Tommy DeVito come in, and there's two ways of controversy with that. So they have that. even though again you could say Tyrod Taylor is injury prone. Throughout the process, he never got, maybe once or twice, he never got the first or second. He got the first. He never got the first team reps. Never got the first team reps. It was always Daniel Jones, right? There was no inclination of a competition. It was always favored towards Daniel Jones. So you move into the next few weeks. Jones gets hurt. All these different things. Tyrod Taylor comes in. He gets hurt. Tommy DeVito plays. Now, the controversy with that is the bad side of it is the fact side of it. Tommy DeVito doesn't really have upside as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Brian Daboll made him turned chicken shit into chicken salad. Okay. Not to totally rip on Tommy DeVito as a player, but that's what happened. That is what happened. He looked so good that people started considering, well, is he going to be a good quarterback? You know, could the Giants actually consider him for the future? Could we make a run? Like there was these weird possibilities, right? And that was after Daniel Jones tore his ACL. So that happened, right? And they let this, I think this offseason was the biggest fucking mistake the New York Giants made. The biggest fucking mistake. They have all this controversy. They try to do this JJ McCarthy shit. Nobody buys it. They select Malik Neighbors. You don't draft a quarterback. You sign Drew Lock, who has a handful of starts in his career as a starter or as a pick or as a quarterback in his career. He's not even better than Daniel Jones. He's in the same draft class as Daniel Jones. You let Tyrod Taylor go because of a few $1 million and the fact that he's injury prone. You don't pay up for that position. And guess what happens? The situation we're at now. Drew Lock doesn't get first team reps in camp. The Giants don't draft a quarterback, whether that's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round. They don't draft a quarterback. You notice some organizations draft quarterbacks so they have starters, right? Michael Penix, drafted by the Falcons. Kirk Cousins was signed in free agency. A couple of years ago, there was a guy by the name of Jimmy Garoppolo, and he went down, and his season was over. So they transitioned to a guy who you all know by the name of Brock Purdy, and it's a pretty good situation from there. They're 1-0. They went to a Super Bowl. He's not an elite quarterback, but he does the job. That team is built very, very well, which is contrasting to the Giants because the Giants are not a well put together team outside of Daniel Jones in a couple of different areas and the way they do things. But you come in, you don't want to create controversy. So Daniel Jones is always your starter. He's given the job other than minicamp where he couldn't do anything. Drew Lock, he's not given those first team reps. DeVito isn't given those first team reps. You don't have an open competition. And he looks like shit in the preseason, and you still don't sign a veteran backup or somebody that's better than Locke. Locke gets hurt. You go through this whole fucking circus. Then we get to week 1 now. Daniel Jones looks like absolute shit. And guess what? You're stuck in controversy, and it's at the face of the quarterback. And now Daniel Jones is bringing down Joe Shane and Brian Daboll with him, which, let's be honest, folks, I like Daboll better than Shane, but it's on the both of them that they stuck with this guy at quarterback. And not to mention his injury guarantee can kick in at any moment if he gets injured in practice, he gets injured in a game. The Giants will be stuck paying him $23 million, and they will be fucked. They will be fucked. There's no way around it. Let me see. That sounds like lipstick on a pig. Yeah, absolutely. That's like one of the best ways to put it, Armand. So they have that situation, and that's where we currently are. That's where we currently are. And I think it's really a big picture thing with Daniel Jones. He is done in a Giants uniform after this year. Whether the Giants want to, draft a quarterback, they want to fire the coach, they want to keep the coach, doesn't really matter. And I'll say this. I'm about to be done with Daniel Jones. I want to say this. Now, you guys can disagree with me. You guys can agree with me. I've gotten pushback on this from several different people. Again, I will have you guys state your opinions in chat. Supposedly, some Giant fans stayed after the game and decided to taunt Daniel Jones as he was coming out. They were taunting him. I don't know what they said, but it was just a video that went viral. And then the Giants sent Madeline Burke, Art Stapleton, a couple other different people. They sent them out there to say, do better, Giant fans, this, that, and the third, whatever. So here's my opinion, folks. I don't have a problem with them taunting him. Because guess what? There's two things that are true, but nobody talks about in this world. Kenny Galladay was taunted in 2022 after he dropped some balls against the Texans or a few weeks beforehand. He was taunted. Get off my team. There is a video of him in like the same area that Daniel Jones was. Funny how nobody talks about that. No beat reporter, no Giants media members like, oh, do better, Giant fans. I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And I would remember significant details like that. Number two is this, right? I am a Yankee fan. I sit in left field, I sit in right field. If you're at Yankee Stadium and you're sitting in those seats, you know what goes on. The teenagers, the I don't want to say middle-aged people, the young adults, they sit there and they taunt the right fielder, left fielder, and talk about their families. They curse at them. They do all this other stuff, right? That's not talked about. The fuck out Tuves, that's not talked about, right? They still kind of do that at Yankee Stadium. But when it concerns Daniel Jones, oh, we got to go ape shit about this. Has this? No one fucking cares. First of all, if you win games, none of that shit happens. I'm sorry. If you win games and you're a good quarterback and you're a good team, none of that shit happens. Which I might actually move to the cave on deck shit in a minute before we go to the rest of the offense and the defense, of course, because, again, there's not much good about this game. Nothing physical happened. Nothing physical happened. Everybody's saying, oh, it's bad and this, that, and the third. Like, if you want to sit here and say, oh, they're not real Giant fans because they just wanted to get clicks on social media, that's a totally different entity. But I got people saying, oh, it's a player safety issue. And last time I checked, none of those teenagers or whoever the fuck was talking about Daniel Jones and taunting him taunting him right there, they didn't throw glass bottles at him. They didn't throw firecrackers at him. They didn't beat the shit out of him with bananas. This is words, people. This is words. If it's physical, you will hear me come on the show and say, this isn't right. Giant fans need to do better. But how about we sit here and critique the organization for letting fans sit there, 100th year anniversary, the shit product, the shit stadium, the shit parking prices. I was offered, and I'll say this again, I was offered a possibility of going to the game last weekend, $75, pretty good price. And I said, I can't go because I'm not paying $100 for parking, which is more than the guy offered me. The parking was on an extra site. It was another site, and it was just not affordable for me because I'm going to Cleveland in a week and a half. So I said, I'm sorry, I got to pass, which is one of the best decisions of my life. But you sit in a shit stadium for 3 hours. You sit in a parking lot. It's a bad experience, except for the tailgating. Tailgating is pretty fun. It's a bad experience pretty much once you enter the stadium and not till you get back home. And when you get back home, you still feel like shit. But don't sit here and try to police Giant fans when there are worse situations that have happened. How about this? If you're the Giants, you're so worried about that, build an alternate entrance. Do some plexiglass. Oh, that's right. Plexiglass ain't going to do shit because you can still talk to them. Like, we're sitting here trying to worry about policing Giant fans. Meanwhile, other shit is going on. A coworker of mine was at the game and told me about DJ walking to his car that if some fans were throwing shit at him, that's not acceptable. The fans should do better. If that is true, if fans were throwing shit at him, that's unacceptable. But taunting, I can't have 100 people sitting here, and I'm not saying it's you, it's Giant fans telling me, oh, that's bad. Because guess what? When the Giants go back to the locker room at halftime, the fans are right over them. There's like a little entrance, right, along the sideline, and then it's like at the midfield point, and you're just looking down. If you're in the first 2 rows, you're looking down, and they're just entering the locker room. You could throw shit right there. It's pretty much as easily and as accessible. What are they going to do? They're going to put a net there? I mean, we're sitting here, making something out of nothing. But the next thing I want to go to, again, I wanted to kind of talk about the offense, and I'm still going to talk about the offense. It's so bad that we have, and I mentioned this before. The Giants seem to do a lot of things wrong, and it seemed like a lot of people, even though they did right, they did wrong. they did wrong. What was it on Sunday? First of all, we got Dexter Lawrence, right? Leonard Williams said something similar 2 years ago. I don't respect the booing. I always say I like Dexter as a player, and he was the player that showed up on defense. But don't sit here, and I don't give a fuck if he's a Pro Bowler or he's a champion or he's the best at his position, not best at his position. Don't sit here and tell the fans how to act unless they're throwing bottles and shit. They are booing. That is not the worst thing in the world that they could do. That's not the worst thing in the world. So don't tell the fans, oh, I don't respect the booing. We don't respect your fucking play on the field. Yeah, I'm getting angry. And very rarely do I come out and get angry, but this shit pisses me off when you're sitting here. All the anger that you have because the Giants have been a shit organization, you're going to sit here and turn that to the fans, the people that pay the PSLs, the season tickets, the fucking merchandise, the parking. You're going to turn your anger towards them, towards us. I'm a Giant fan, but I'm also a media member. You're going to towards all the anger going to spew towards us. How about you pointed at your coach? How about you pointed at the defensive coordinator? How about you pointed at your teammates? So-called leader my ass. Do better, Dexter Lawrence. I don't care. And, I know Don LaGreca was going off saying, that question should have been asked. And Michael K's like, yeah, that question should have been asked. So I compliment Michael K on that one. Seems like I'm agreeing with Michael K a little bit more. But don't sit here and try to police fans. That shit pisses me off. And they're not throwing shit. They are booing. I'm really tired. And I'm going to go after a section of the Giants fan base. Ladies and gentlemen, what market are we in? We are in the New York market. And I am so fucking tired of, and I don't tell fans how to fan, but I'm going to do it here. They have these low expectations for these certain players and this team that it's acceptable to win 6-7 games every year. That we make these, these little victories, right? We get so propped up by the bullshit that everybody throws us, the media throws us. Oh, Daniel Jones is going to have a good year because of the beard. No, this is New York. The Giants have been so bad for so long, but that doesn't mean our standard changes. And a bigger discussion we'll get to is obviously Dable and Shane. But if I told you guys 3 years for these guys, multiple first-round picks, and you max out the credit card each time on free agency, you would think that a team would turn around at that point. Well, we're not turned around, and we're facing another bullshit season. 16 more games of this to go. Meanwhile, the Lions, they're competing. The Texans, they're competing. The Jaguars, they're competing, right? Multiple other teams, they're competing, right? Let's see. Let me think of this. Brian Flores, year 1 wasn't good. Year 2, I'm trying to backtrack here because Flores, the tanking started in 19. 2020, they had a solid season. 2021, they had a solid season, but they changed coaches. They were still competing. The Giants are not even at that point yet. We're in mediocre land, but we're focused on a beard, and we're focused on this, and we're focused on that. Come on, people. We got to start reading this shit in between the lines. Getting paid $160 million to suck week in and week out is embarrassing. We do what we want. Daniel Jones needs to go. I listen. You're not saying anything wrong, Evan. You're not saying anything wrong. So, and then let's move to Kayvon for a second. You're going to sit here and deflect the question from Jordan Renan. I have my differences with the beat media on some questions they ask, but he asked about his production. I talked about this in the wink scheme. I talked about this when we hired Shane Bowen. I said, look, there's going to be situations more where Kayvon lines up more consistently one-on-one situations. And that's where I'm worried about him because he did not win a lot of one-on-one matchups. There was a lot of creativity done by Wink, and he got 11.5 sacks as a product of that. Well, Kayvon didn't show up. He didn't show up in the game, right? Brian Burns, he didn't show up in the game. Dexter Lawrence was the only one who showed up along the defensive line. But he's going to sit there and deflect the question because he doesn't like Jordan. I don't care if you don't like the reporter. He's got a job to do. I don't care if you like the question. You have answers to make for those questions because you didn't produce on the field. This team is soft. And it's not like you're Michael Strahan or you're Eli Manning or you're Antonio Pierce. No, he had 11 and a half sacks last year. Give him credit, but you're not a perennial winner. You're not a Super Bowl champ. You are not a Pro Bowler. You're not even one of the best pass rushers in the game. Like we had to sit here. He is not a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt or a Nick Bosa. And mind you, he was drafted number 5 overall a few years ago. And he's not at that level. Aiden Hutchinson is working at that level. Kayvon is not. So I don't know what's wrong with him, what bug crawled up his ass. But you know what, bro? Stop being soft. Start answering questions. And all that anger that you have pointed at your team, pointed at your quarterback, pointed at somebody that's not the fans of the media. If they ask a stupid question, it's a stupid question, and I'll call it out. But that's a good question to ask. Your production, what are you going to do about it? And you know what, folks? This is interesting, right? Just came to me. You watch all the Giants highlights, right? From 2022 when they went to the combine, they asked Kayvon, what are you going to do when you don't produce the first few games and New York's going after you? And he had a pretty good seasoned response. I guess all that shit just went to his head and went away. Sorry. Facts are facts, brothers and sisters. Facts are facts. But let's get into the offense. Let's get into Brian Dable, because this is where I start to go on him, and that's a lot. The Giants really fucked up with personnel usage on Sunday. What's up to Mac, the Giants fan? Hope all is well. I bet you're not as I bet you're as angry as me with this utter garbage team. But Mac, the Giants fan has a channel. Go check it out, guys. So the first thing I'm going to talk about offense first in terms of like the scheme, how they went about things before I talk about personnel. The Giants signed Devin Singletary in the offseason, and that was supposed to be Saquon Barkley's replacement as the number 1 back. And it showed a philosophy change in what they wanted to do on offense. They wanted to become a passing dominant team. But here's the problem. I knew even before we signed Singletary that A, he's not a bell cow back, and B, Daniel Jones is not some guy that throws 40 fucking times a game. He's not a guy that throws 50 times a game. Get a quarterback that can, if that's your strategy, or else don't let Saquon Barkley walk. That's what it is, right? And as much as I hate to say it, but it's facts, there might be a part of the season where Saquon Barkley's production in Philadelphia comes back to hurt the Giants. I think week 7 is going to be a big game in terms of John Mara getting emotional and throwing his chair out the fucking window of his suite because Saquon Barkley is going off. Joe Shane let him go, and he was pretty much arrogant about the entire situation. And he didn't think that Saquon Barkley was going to get paid much money. Well, guess what? We're fans, and you're a GM, and you're supposed to know a little bit more than we can. But using Devin Singletary as a bell cow, first of all, this is the worst backfield I think I've seen for the New York Giants since the New York Giants had Saquon Barkley injured, Wayne Gallman injured, and going to the Patriots game on Thursday Night Football in 2019 with Austin Walter, Elijah Penny, and John Hilliman as running backs. This might be a better room, but not by much. No mention and no activation of Eric Gray other than 2 rushes, and Tyrone Tracy gets 2 rushes. So 4 rushes and 8 yards for those guys in the backfield. But you give Singletary like he's a bell cow. And I know that it's not totally a bell cow because it's not like he rushed 20 times. 10 carries, 37 yards. But you know that they wanted to use him like a bell cow. You know that. But guess what happened? The Giants got further behind in the game, and they had to pivot, and they had to force Daniel Jones to drop back and throw 40 fucking times because the Giants were down by 1, 2, 3 scores. So I don't understand that philosophy. I don't. Right? Let's go with not moving the ball downfield. Now, some people have explained the Giants wanted heavier personnel for the sake of simplifying the defense, getting them just to play regular defense instead of just flying all over the place and getting super creative and hyped up just to play gaps and everything, just to calm them down. But they didn't even have success doing that. And the Giants were put in 18 third downs. You know how bad that is? 18 third fucking downs. If you're a good offense, it's not even about converting third downs at this point. It's about going out there and having first and second downs efficiently. The Giants didn't do that. That's why they were forced into 18 third downs. But it wasn't even third downs of 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 1 or this and that. No. The Giants forced themselves into these 3rd and longs offensively with penalties, which wasn't good. I mean, you had, I think, 90 yards worth of penalties. Team stats. We're going to take a look at that right now. 9 penalties, 95 yards. Now, you could take off 30 if you want for that bullshit Adoree Jackson penalty, but that's still bad, right? They came, and I always say this, it's not about, oh, well, you get 10 penalties for this yards. It's about that, but it's also about when those penalties kick in. You could have a 30-yard run, it could come back holding offense, right? So the penalties weren't there. You take a delay of game coming off of a stoppage. So it's not like the play is running, the clock is running. No, there was a stoppage, and you take a delay of game. It's unreal how bad this offense is with the penalties, starting with the quarterback, and then Dable's play calling didn't make it much better. I'm not going to say it was his fault entirely because I do think he is limited by the quarterback. So the penalties were bad. Using Singletary as a bell cow, that was bad. Like, that's throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. That does not fucking work. It doesn't work. Especially when you know what you know already about Singletary, that he is not some bell cow Saquon Barkley-esque back. What's up to Miz, Grega, and Danny Duds? He is a big fucking dud. We all know that, and I agree with you. But aside from the play calling, some stuff that Dable had in his control, and of course, play calling was part of that, but we do have people out there that think play calling was the worst part and not the quarterback play, which is completely bullshit, but I'm not even going to entertain that conspiracy tinfoil hat nonsense. What he could control is this, right? First of all, 51 players active. 51 players active on a 53-man roster. How do you do that? Why is that necessary? Why are you trying to play these roster gymnastics for the no guaranteed money? You do realize it is Joe Shane's roster. It is your roster. You're basically playing gymnastics on your own situation, right? You spent the money in free agency. This has nothing to do with Gettleman anymore. This is your roster. So any shit you did in free agency, you didn't want, you maybe used more cap than you wanted. You are paying the piper because of your mistakes. To sit here at 51 players active on a 53-man roster. Now, if the Giants won and they made the personnel decisions correctly, he's had 51 into 53, okay, then we're not talking about this. But you don't have Jakob Johnson. And there are a couple of running plays that a fullback would have helped. You go 3rd and 1, you go empty. You go an empty backfield. He is not Patrick Mahomes. He is not Josh Allen. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel, brothers? Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Have Daniel Jones under center in the I formation with Jakob Johnson and Singletary, even put Eric Ray in. Move the chains. You have to stick by that anyway. I also talk about this, right? I was going around about personnel before that you wanted to simplify the defense, really get them settled down, have to play some sort of honesty. Not moving the ball down the field, but I blame that on Jones and Dable, by the way. Not moving the ball down the field is a terrible, terrible thing, right? I don't understand this playing not to lose mentality. And again, I think it's the quarterback and the play caller in that respect, because that seems like Daniel Jones' motto, and Dable obviously being handcuffed by Daniel Jones, but you have to do something, right? If you don't like Daniel Jones not taking shots, either do something else or bench him. That's what it has to be at this point, folks. That's what it has to be, right? But you can't be sitting here trying to stunt players' growth and not going down the field. Darius Slayton is there. Malik Neighbors, he had a pretty damn good game. He was there, right? You have other guys. The Giants have a decent weapon room. They have a decent weapon room, and you're not going to attempt a throw of 20-plus yards down the field. You cannot function as an offense like that. You can't. And by the way, I remind you that the New York Giants this weekend were the only team not to score double digits. I'm pretty sure the Panthers scored double digits. I don't remember the last time that happened. So moving the ball downfield, we talked about. Talked about Jakob Johnson not being used. We talked about using Singletary as a bell cow, right? We talked about those penalties. Here's one thing I'm going to get into. I talked about the Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton debate coming into the season. Why is Bryce Ford Wheaton being used over Jalen Hyatt? Why is Hyatt getting most of his snaps in the fourth quarter? And if there's some clarity needs to happen, right? There's conspiracies about Hyatt not being happy with his involvement in the offense. So I don't know who to blame on that, right? Whether Hyatt's being a baby or this, that, and the third, whose ever fault it is that he is not on the field. The Giants traded up for him, by the way. Wanted to remind you guys of that. But to go over to the point that I just made about 15 seconds ago, Joe Shane traded up and got this guy in the third round. This guy was supposed to be a dynamic playmaker, this, that, and the third. So however you slice it of, oh, it's Hyatt's fault or it's the Giants' fault, you're going to sit here and have BFW, who doesn't even belong on the field on offense, over Hyatt. You are indicting yourself on your asset management, which already is pretty shit. Let's be honest, folks. So BFW over Hyatt, we have covered that. And I'm going to carry over something else that pretty much didn't make any sense. I was unhappy with the way the Giants handled things in terms of the wide receiver room. I mean, you already got your four and Slayton, Hyatt, Neighbors, and Wandale. They had BFW and Gunnar Olszewski. And before John Schmelk had some family issues, and obviously, hopefully his family's doing better now. I was going to ask him, like, who is the backup punt returner, right? Who's the backup kicking guy, kick returner, punt returner, whatever, just in case Gunnar Olszewski's not ready. They said 2 to 4 weeks on a groin injury. Meanwhile, it wasn't even, I think it was 2 weeks at this point? So how do you expect him to come back at the earliest form, right? And even the defensive stuff was questionable. The defensive stuff was questionable. We'll talk about two particular players that did not play. And this is a little bridge into the defense. But Gunnar Olszewski gets re-injured in warm-ups. You don't have a backup kick returner. You signed one right now in Amir Smith-Marset from the Panthers and the Vikings. So you do that now, and you don't do it when you have two open roster spots, which makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. So let me see what the chat's cooking here. What if we lose to the Commanders this Sunday? Then you could call the season over. I think the season's over right now. I'm going to be honest with you, Almighty, but you guys can feel the way you want. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. Moving into this defense, right? Moving into this defense, which I was very unhappy with. Let's talk about the personnel decision. They did two things that really pissed me off. Three things. Three things. It's a mixture of Shane Bowen and Brian Dable. First of all, you dress Micah McFadden and he does not play a single fucking snap on defense. What is that? This guy, 5th round pick a couple of years ago, yes, a different scheme, but he doesn't play a snap. You play Darius Mussau, who did not look good other than the interception. You play a 6th round rookie over this guy, who is a NFL caliber linebacker. Simmons, right? Simmons, oh, he's going to be our slot corner. No, he's not. Last few weeks of practice, he was second inside linebacker when McFadden was hurt. He didn't even play. So what is this gymnastics you're trying to play with us and this media game and this game that you're trying to hide? I don't understand. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, you're trying to make the defense not prepare for Micah McFadden? Oh, we're going to make them prepare for McFadden. And then we're going to show them Mussau. Oh, shit, they're so scared, right? Mussau's this all-pro fucking linebacker. Like, it turns into a circus at this point. It literally turns into a circus once you get to this point. So both of them didn't play. I think Coughlin got hurt. He's out months. Ty Summers was available, but he's a special teamer. You cut Curtis Bolton before the game. So those were your options at linebacker. You had Okereke, who played all right. And you also had Darius Mussau, who had one pick, but he played awful. Like, he was not taking the right angles. He was bad in coverage. I don't understand throwing a guy into the fire like that, especially in a year where you're supposed to be winning games and when you're supposed to be carrying and having a contending team, not some team that's rebuilding from the top to bottom. Um, I was very, very confused on why the Giants sat there and they had Andrew Phillips force a fumble and had one reception allowed the entire game, which was a third down stop, right? Before the touchdown to JJ. Andrew Phillips forces a fumble and he allows one reception, but Cordell Flott's going to transition into the slot. All of a sudden, he didn't do that all training camp. Maybe that was a practice thing. What gives? What gives? Why you do not have the personnel on the outside, and Adoree Jackson wasn't even that ready yet, where you're going to sit there and say, oh, we're going to be comfortable with Flott in the slot. You didn't do that the entire preseason. And not to mention, he got beat on an Aaron Jones touchdown where he didn't know what he was doing in his zone. Oh, shocker. I brought this up before. He cannot play in a zone fucking system. He can't play. Nick McLeod was awful. Another position that Joe Shane neglected, corner 2. You sign Adoree Jackson, but you sign him 4 days before the fucking season starts. Or how many other days? Or a week before the season starts. Because you wanted to play hardball and I never understood that. You wanted McKinstry, you wanted Lassiter. Okay, you don't get them. You get Phillips. He's a slot. Okay, you bring in schmucks to compete at corner 2, and McLeod and Flott win easily. Easily because they're the best in that room, but that doesn't say a lot. No Ahkello Witherspoon, no Xavier Howard, no Patrick Peterson, no Adoree Jackson, till the point that you're out of training camp, you sign a guy, and that's it. And that's it. Okay? Drew Phillips, and I'm not usually in tune with guys being thrown into the fire, but Drew Phillips was playing well. Musal was not. Why was the tendency flipped? Please tell me why. Like that is, I'm sorry. We can talk about Daniel Jones. I don't like him as a quarterback, but some of these things, I don't know if that's on Dave's or I don't know if that's on Shane Bowen. But at the end of the day, it comes back to bite you in the ass because you're the head coach. People need to be held accountable, folks. People need to be held accountable. But I see a couple of comments coming in. Mel says these decisions are not our organization's play calls. No way anyone calls them plays for anyone under a year off that injury. Something is off. Sorry, everyone. Good evening. No, you're fine. What's with our defense? It's like we can never cover the edge. We constantly look let running backs run on the sideline. What is up to Jacob in the chat? Well, I want to say this. Why is our defense consistently getting me to drive me nuts? We do not have any. That's my point. The Giants failed successfully at that corner 2 position. They failed successfully. I don't understand that. The how in the fuck do you sit there, right? How do you sit there? You say on Hard Knocks, which was the biggest joke of all time and really added to the circus. How do you sit there? You talk about how you want a corner in the second round. This is not some 5th round. You want some depth. You're in the second round. You want a corner. You don't trade up for those guys. You don't get any in free agency. What are you reassuring yourself, you narcissist? What are you reassuring yourself that Flott and McLeod can suddenly magically play in this system? Like, someone said it to me a few weeks ago when talking about the World Cup games. You cannot win something based on luck. Was Joe Shane hoping for some rainbow and a pot of gold at the end of it that would tell him, hey, McLeod and Flott are going to be starting corners. You're going to be just fine. And to bring up some of the points in chat, this is on the players more so than the general manager. But at the end of the day, let's go back on the general manager and the defense and the head coach. Is the fact that the Giants cannot set the edge against the run. My apologies. They cannot set the edge. Aaron Jones cuts to the outside. The Giants, I think, have a little bit of an issue on the interior, but for whatever reason it is, the DBs couldn't tackle, and our edges were just not there. Brian Burns. All right, let's look it up. I think I have the stats for you guys. Some people calculated. Brian Burns had, I think, one pressure the entire game. Hold on, let me look. Let's see. I'm tired of searching my bookmarks, so I'm gonna pull it up. Brian Burns, Brian Burns, Brian Burns. I think he had one quarterback hit. I think that one puny pressure. That's why. Okay, here we go. One pressure for Brian Burns. Kayvon Thibodeau, one quarterback hit. Dexter Lawrence, a quarterback hit, a sack, and 6 pressures. DJ Davidson did more or about the same as 2 players. That's sad for Thibodeau and Burns. DJ Davidson is a 5th-round pick a couple of years ago. Thibodeau, one quarterback hit. Remember, he couldn't answer the question. He deflected the question like he's some superstar, like he's some hot shit. Brian Burns, one pressure. I'm sorry, but it doesn't look good when, you know, you have a guy, you have $30 million, you pay him, and he goes out and performs like that in week 1. Now, he will probably have a good game against the Commandos, but I don't think against the Browns he's going to have a good game. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but a very grim start to the edge room for the New York Football Giants. Very grim start. Very grim. And what I will say is this as well. First of all, I don't agree on letting Jefferson on an island on a 4th down with Deonte Banks. I don't see the reason for that, considering that Banks is not even a corner 1 yet, and you're sitting there, you're allowing it. Justin Jefferson, I mean, he didn't blow up the game, but he had some nice explosive plays. But the death of this defense is going to be the lack of aggressiveness. I'm going to say it right now. The lack of aggressiveness is going to be the death of this defense. And you can call me a wink homer or this, that, and the third. I'm sorry. I don't care. I literally do not care. The Giants, the past 2 years, had a better, I would argue, I think the pressures were probably better in year 1 with Wink in 2022 because you kind of had no film on him. And you had, better usage of personnel per se. But I think it was better than it might be now. Listen, you upgraded the edges and expect them to do wonders, which at the end of the day, you should. You also have a shit corner room, right? You have a crap corner room, and you're playing this bend but don't break defense, which is not at all in sync with what the offense wants to do. And this is Brian Dable hiring Shane Bowen again. This is him hiring Shane Bowen, and we know this is what he wants because A, he chose his DC, and B, last year against the Cowboys, Brian Dable was unhappy with Wink because Wink wouldn't calm down the pressures and had to play stupid zone. He played zone because they had Tommy DeVito at quarterback and the offense was terrible. So he had to slow down what he was doing just to dumb down to the offense's level. Now the offense still can't score points despite better personnel, questionable play calling, and a stupid, horrible quarterback. So you have that, but you have somebody in tune with that, which is a bad thing because you're leaving the defense on the field for a certain number of minutes. And the defense is going to get tired. And that's why you need to rest players. And that's why the Giants are going to be so awful against the run. But the Giants can't sustain a drive. The defense, it's not great personnel wise, but brother, the lack of aggressiveness is going to kill this defense. And this is why they probably won't be a top defense in the league. Mosley, what's up? R0B, what's good? Yeah, not committing to Flott. I agree with you, Jacob. As I said, it's bad. It is completely bad. He's getting more beam. I don't understand that. Like, why did you all preseason outside corner Flott, and then suddenly magically you transition him into the slot? Like, what was the point of that? Scott says, anybody knew we needed a corner? I don't understand why we didn't go out and get another corner. I knew we needed a corner once they let Jackson walk into free agency. They did a decent, yeah, he didn't really blow up the game. I knew we were in trouble when they went 99 yards on us, same old shit. Yeah, there was like 2 drives in a row where they walked down the field. They literally marched down the field on us 2 straight drives. And let's see, I'm going to put the offense in this a little bit. You have the turnover, the forced fumble, Andrew Phillips. Then you score 3, you kick off. And I think it was that drive they went down the field. If not, it was the next one. The Giants made a really good play on special teams where they had them pinned at the 1 yard line. I'm surprised it wasn't a touchback. And then what happens is, 99 yards, and there was another drive. And then outside the half, when they're out, guess what happens? Down the field, Aaron Jones touchdown. Bowen is an uncreative defensive coordinator. He can't create a pass rush without the front four. He wants the front four to just generate that pass rush and everybody else just be there. You can't create a defense like that. I'm sorry. I am sorry. Let him leave if he wants to leave. Quack, quack, division, searching out other cities. Hey, Dan Campbell is our guy. Gville, he has waited so long for this. No, not exactly a cowboy. Tell no one. Scott says, I love Brian Daboll as our coach. It seems like in pressures and we get no answers. Keep saying we need to get better. Everybody knows that it's the same answers. King Chris, what's up? We need another defensive tackle that can apply pressure with Dex. That's what we are missing. We're missing a lot of things, but yes, somebody messing with the keyboard, not exactly a cowboy boy type. No problem, Nels. Phantom PI call led to their first tutty. Yeah, but the problem with that is, Jacob, is that good teams kind of overcome that stuff. They overcome that. So that's pretty much my rant on the defense. But we're gonna talk about Joe Shane. We're gonna wrap things up here because it's almost an hour. The Giants, in my opinion, with Joe Shane, this is where we start to rip him, and this is where you could start to hold him accountable. I remember people doing it for Dave Gettleman in year 3, year 4. So you can kind of, again, I had mentioned this earlier. If you told me nothing exact in the situation, but 3 years, you give a GM and a head coach, you get a couple of first round picks, you get the max on the credit card, you max out the credit card in free agency, and you got 3 years to build a team, you should be able to be competing for the playoffs, let alone a division. That's what the Lions did. The Giants are not at that position because they had a fluke in 2022. They decided to live off of that fluke. And Joe Shane, I think he said that the 3-6-1 was more indicative of the team and the talent we had. So that was interesting. No corner too. I mean, we just talked about that. I'm not beating that drum any harder because I'm killing the horse. How about this? The horse is already dead. You're just beating it senseless. No competition at quarterback. No quarterback plan. It's going to fall on him. Burns, no production. Tibbs, no production. I mean, you pick Tibbs, and everybody says, oh, it's a home run hit. I don't know yet. I mean, trust me, there's a lot of picks that there's always like 3 categories. You hit a home run, it's a bust, and then just like a player that never lives up to their status. And I'm sorry, Tibbs is really heading down that avenue right now. Burns, no production. Hopefully it's just the first game, but this is a guy, again, who only had, respectfully speaking, 12 and a half sacks in one season. He is not a Myles Garrett. He is not a TJ Watt. He is not a Nick Bosa. He is not a Joey Bosa. Sorry. In the draft classes, that's where you really start to put in the microscope on Joe Shane, mixed together with everything, because you build through the draft. You don't build through free agency. First round pick, Evan Neal, bust, right? Kayvon Thibodeau, he's not living up to his potential. We could say that. Second round pick, Wan'Dale Robinson, you could say is second round pick worthy, but you don't know yet because your quarterback is incapable. That you signed $240 million contract. Third round pick, Flott, sucks. Third round pick, Gazudu, sucks. Fourth round pick, Bellinger. I can't even make heads or tails of what he is. That's a problem. Micah McFadden, I think he's decent, but he wasn't even used on Sunday. DJ Davidson, good pick. I think that's pretty much it for the first class. The second class, first round pick, Deontay Banks, you don't know of yet. Second round pick, Schmitz, you don't know of yet. Third round pick, why am I struggling on this one? Jordan Riley was not even playing that much. If he was getting his ass beat like a drum. Oh, Jalen Hyatt, third round pick. No good as of right now, because he's supposed to be a guy that, he was supposed to be wide receiver too, but for some reason, BFW is playing over him. Eric Ray, you don't know of. Trey Hawkins, he was inactive, so he might just be a depth guy, and Javarius Owens is on the practice squad. And also Darian Beavers is cut too. So when you build through the draft, you need to hit on picks, and you need to make something out of it. Well, guess what? Joe Shane has not done that. He's not really drafted any Pro Bowl players. It's been all Gettleman guys. Let's be completely honest, folks. And here's one of the main problems with the Giants. I associate with this with something I talked about at the beginning of the program, and that is the Giants are scared of controversy. Well, the Giants are also afraid to be rebuilding. This is not something necessarily that the Yankees do. This is not something the Jets do it sometimes, but it's still half-assed. The Giants always, the last two regimes, have tried to compete while rebuilding, rebuild while competing. They try to do that at the same time, and it never works because you don't do either. You end up in quarterback hell. You end up in mediocrity. It is terrible. The Giants, if this season fails, I think, to be personally honest, there might be better avenues at firing everybody and starting over because you get a complete rebuild. You don't get fooled by a 6-win season or a 9-win season with a tie at the end of it and a playoff game. You don't get fooled, right? That's one of the things where Joe Shane really didn't learn from his experiences because in Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor had them at a playoff game. They traded Tyrod, and guess what happened? They drafted Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they put a team around him. They barely won on Sunday, but that's not even the point. They are afraid to rebuild because they are so concerned about fans not coming in the stadium. Well, guess what? Fans aren't coming in the stadium if you're not putting a good product on the field. That's just facts, right? You're not putting a good product on the field. Your team is not even in it at Halloween. Your fans are not coming to the game. The stands are going to be empty. They're going to be full of visitors, fans. It's going to look like a goddamn LA Charger game, right? You don't want that. And here's what I said, folks, at the beginning of the year, the calendar year, when they fired Wink Martindale. I said, okay, you can no longer sell me that the Giants are going to be this great defense under Wink and make your upgrades. You can't sell me that. You have to sell me on something in this season. You could have sold me on bringing in a quarterback and rebuilding. You could have sold me on, okay, we're going to have Daniel Jones one more year, but there's always that, drafted quarterback that we drafted, a Penix, a McCarthy, a Nix, whoever, or somebody to groom behind. But they stuck with Tommy DeVito. They stuck with Drew Lock, and the Giants, again, have their head in the sand. They have their head in the sand. They sold us or tried to. I didn't buy it. They tried to sell the fan base on, we're going to run it back with Daniel Jones because all he needs is a quality O-line and a wide receiver. Well, guess what? For a bad quarterback who's coming off of an ACL and has confidence is shot, didn't work. Didn't work. Daniel Jones is cooked, and Joe Shane has to live with that. The final thing I'll say before we wrap up, Joe is incapable of drafting talent. I agree. Just going over the chat real quick. There just doesn't seem to be a bottom to this franchise. Yes, no one is blameless, but it falls on Jones. Oh, hell yeah. I agree with that. I ripped Jones at the beginning of the show. Tibbs talks a good game, hasn't improved since his rookie season. Agreed. You don't think DJ will bounce back? Maybe, but what is a bounce back? That's my thing, George. What is a bounce back? What is a bounce back, right? He plays a great game against Washington. Congrats, Daniel Jones. We know he does that already. You need to actually beat a good defense. A bounce back is better than what you had, but again, I already know what I know about Daniel Jones. We need to poach some of the 49ers, Lions, or Texans scouting department. I would do 49ers or Lions. It seems like Adam Peters is a good GM, at least thus far. All I want to see is to be fun bad. This is boring bad. Yeah, I mean, the years of Odell and Eli were fun bad. This is boring bad. Because they had a good offense. Everyone talks shit about Gettleman. We haven't drafted a Pro Bowl caliber player. That's a good point. Yeah, very good point here. DeVito wins killed our chances for Drake May. Yeah. Even Baker Mayfield would have been a good pickup. They were not. I don't think Baker was ever leaving Tampa, but he's a good quarterback. Could have sold me on keeping Tyrod and making him starter. Yeah. Could have sold you on that and tried to win. But even then, you would still have to draft a quarterback, which, again, is a plan. But where do things stand with their jobs? This is my final remark, and anyone else wants to put in some comments in the chat. By the way, like, comment, subscribe to all the good stuff. And also, just wanted to make mention, we are sponsored by SeatGeek, folks. Just wanted to get that out. You guys, I don't know that you'd be going to any Giants games, but you guys get $20 off your online order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. If you're going to a concert, you need a parking pass for probably something other than MetLife Stadium, or you're going to a game in general, Big Blue in the Bronx, $20 off your online ticket order. Thank you. Um, my final thing is, where do everything stand with Joe Shane and Brian Dable as far as their jobs? If you asked me today, Alex, at the end of the season, if you pick one player, not player, you pick one person to absolutely get fired at the end of the season, the way you see the season is going, who is that guy? Well, I think Brian Dable gets fired no matter what if this is the direction that this team is going in, because I don't think 6 wins will settle it. 4 to 5 wins, I don't think settles it, which is bad considering you have 3 years. But I think he would be a mere scapegoat in this situation. I don't like what Dable did personnel wise, and you guys heard me rip him for a multitude of things during this show. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the good things he did with the horse shit roster that Joe Shane gave him, right? He won 6 games last year, 3 of those with Tommy DeVito as quarterback, right? He molded a secondary with Wink's help that was not even good behind Adoree Jackson in 22. You had Nick McLeod and Fabian Moreau, and for some reason they were starters. Again, 3-6-1 down the stretch was more indicative, but we're not gonna, we're not gonna talk about that, of course, because Joe Shane's a great GM, right? Um, but in my opinion, if you would have asked me, Alex, who's more deserving of being fired at the end of the season, I say Joe Shane. I said it on Twitter. I said I'd rather fire Joe Shane, keep Brian Dable, and promote a Chris Rossetti or Brandon Brown than make Dable the scapegoat and give Joe Shane some other miraculous shot at building a roster when this whole team just looks defeated. They don't have an attitude. They don't have an identity. But at the end of the day, there is this. The Giants, whether it's Shane, whether it's Dable, they can't be doing this sentimental nonsense anymore. If Dable has to go with Shane to clean out house, he has to go. It's what it is. You cannot be worrying about fair. You know what fair gets you? Fair gets you another Slayton contract. Fair gets you another Daniel Jones contract because we didn't build around him and he didn't have a winning team around him. Sometimes the truth is not good enough. Sometimes the truth is not good enough. And I feel that Dable has coached better than Shane has put talent on the field. But at the end of the day, if you want to really talk about stuff and not play the sentimental, emotional game, you rip it all down. You start again. You trade players that we like a lot for assets, and you start from the bottom. Take your quarterback, build the foundation, and become a winning team in 2 to 3 years. To become a winning team in 2 to 3 years. You can't be sitting here worrying, oh, well, I feel bad. We have to fire Dable again. I like Dable better than I like Shane. But you know what? At the end of the day, folks, where is the sentimental for us fans, that we have to sit here and watch putrid nonsense offense, defense, special teams of this team week in and week out for the past 12 years? Where is the sentimental for us? Unreal. Unreal. Let me see what else I got in the chat. Does Belichick come in next year? I could see Mara biting on that for the emotional reasons. I could actually see that because I feel like Ben Johnson's going to be a hard get. Vrabel might be a hard get. I don't know if I really want anything to do with Vrabel's defense. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but hindsight's 2020. Best thing for this team to do is sell. I mean, do everything you trade capital for, even for Dexter Thomas. That's going to be worst comes to worst, LI. That's a conversation that has to be had, unfortunately. Now, I don't know if the Giants want to do it or this, that, and the third, but I'll let the GM and I'll let the head coach, if there's a firing, I'll let them determine that. If fans really want change, let Mara see the same half empty kicked off the rest of the season until they put a winning product on the field. Brother, I am in complete agreement with you. Unless it's a media opportunity, I'm not showing my face at the stadium. I'm not. And I said this at the beginning of the show again. If Mara doesn't get that this team completely embarrassed him, the Legends' families, and this fan base in week 1, when showcasing this 100th anniversary team and all these ceremonies and stuff, and the team plays like that, then he's not going to get it. But I think he does because I think he's a little bit more aware. Um, Brandon Brown, Eagles plant. I don't know if he's an Eagles plant, but I don't know how he is a true town evaluator. But the fish rots from the head down. Please, for the love of God, want bag. Belichick is a giant all flip shit. So who would want to bring his coach? I have 3 suggestions, really 2. I haven't made my mind up on Belichick. I personally, I don't think I would want him because I think you still have to like. There's no free agent quarterbacks out there next year, so you probably just have to strip it down and get a quarterback. So I say Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel. You could, but you kind of want an offensive coach in here. If we have a new regime, I won't cry. I believe we call Belichick because that tree's won us 4 Super Bowls. Belichick is coming if this gets ugly. Yeah, the shadows are coming in. 3, 4 wins, they both go. I might even stretch that to 5, but as I said, we'll see. But folks, I'm gonna ready to wrap it up here. Like, comment, subscribe, share out the podcast, which the podcast should be uploaded at the end of the night on Spotify, Podbean, all those platforms. Tomorrow night, I will be on a Washington Commanders channel on the Warpath with Corey. He's always on here when we play the Commanders, me and him. We talk now and then about our respective teams. He'll be on the channel Saturday, but I'm coming on his channel tomorrow night at 8:30. So if you want a Washington look of things, if you want a Giants look of things, you want to collab, Wednesday and Saturday are both key days to do it. But we'll see. We'll see. But I just want to go over this one comment. If Giants sign Belichick, it'll be the same as White Sox signing La Russa. Dude is washed up, doesn't know what he's doing anymore, and it gives the owner a drinking buddy, excuse me. They ain't getting 3 wins, they might get 2. I wouldn't I'll remark on something before we go as part of the controversy. You will not see a Giants team tank because Mara, I think, sees that as beneath him. You will not see a team win a game and then lose 7, 8 in a row without changes being made and some sort of winning going on. Now, whether you view that as unnecessary wins, like, we need a quarterback, stop winning football games. I could very much be on the same train with you, but I'm just telling you how I think the organization thinks. I think that they think tanking is beneath them. That the Giants hold themselves as a high regard organization, and there would be no such thing as tanking, and the Giants would probably not get 2 wins or 3 wins. My opinion, I think it's between 4 and 5 for the season. Could be 6, but we saw last year how they started, and then they won some meaningless games in the second half. So everything is still on the table, but like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when live stream pops or drops. Appreciate you coming back. It's hour 12 into the show. Again, I'll be on Corey's channel on the Warpath tomorrow night at 8:30, and then he'll be on my channel. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the premiere Saturday for the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast previewing the Commanders game. Appreciate you guys. See you later. Stay cool.